What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
and we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's get it.
US to go to college and just being shocked by how little people knew of my world. I mean, I just thought that it was very strange that in 1997 people would ask me, do you have houses in Nigeria? And I was stunned by that, you know. And in some ways, when you're outside of the US, and America has such cultural power that we're all familiar in some ways with America. So we watch the films, we listen to the music, and in some ways you stupidly assume that America also has a sense of you.
Right.
And then I came here and I just was shocked by that. Yeah. But it also made me think about how, in some ways, we're all, as human beings, potentially guilty of having a single story about other people.
Yeah.
And so while I was upset that they knew very little about where I had come from, I went to Mexico and I realized, my goodness, I'm doing the same thing that Americans did to me. Because in Mexico, I thought, my God, they're normal, they're happy, they're laughing.
They're normal.
Because I had been in this country where the constant coverage of Mexicans was so negative and so one-sided. The appeal of Donald Trump. I just do not understand it. And I think, you know, we're talking about, who's going to win the elections in this country. And it seems to me that there is a kind of almost willful disregard of the fact that there's a person who I think is dangerous for this country, who has enormous support in certain parts of this country. And we should ask, why. I want to understand it and I don't. So that bewilders me. I think also this idea of, you know, the tribal orthodoxies, you know, that there's certain things you're not supposed to say. I think in this country now, if somebody on the right agrees with something, there are many people on the left who feel compelled to immediately disagree with it and not think about the content of it. So this kind of tribal thinking, which I think shuts down thought. You know, we're not thinking critically. So someone on the right approves of this, I don't approve of it because I'm on the left. And I think also the reverse is the case. And I find that bewildering on so many levels because what it means is that we can't even talk about, you know, I want to talk about the content of things. I want to...
That's the big. She's talking right.
I remember... when we first, because we have always reacted the way we react. Regardless if it was music, comedy, or whatever. We like to have dialogue. You know, discuss things.
Yes, sir.
And people would say, oh, y'all are on the left, but the right do this. Baby, I don't care who up, down, left, right. We're on the side of the Demouchets. And what makes sense to the Demouchets and what prospers and caters to unity and peace.
Right.
You know, and when it comes to, you know, I feel like the presidential elections, it brings out the ugly side of people. I remember the very first election the presidential election that we were able to vote for. And I unfriended so many of my peers. People who I once sat on side of because of the things that they were saying online that I didn't know. They thought about that.
I feel you on
about black people because
I feel you on that.
The president was black. He ended up being black, right? It was like, wow, you are that focused on skin color. Because at that time, I knew I was black and proud, but I've never been a racist. But I saw my peers being racist because it was a black president. Right.
I feel like anytime we have any controversial, you know, thing that's, you know, trending in the media or even in just, you know, casual conversations, you should at least come to a point, like she was mentioning, where you shouldn't have a limited thought process of what's happening between the conversation, where you only just one-sided, or in other words, you're stubborn to the idea that you have only. You want to just keep that idea to yourself, and you don't want to think any further than that. Anytime you have those type of conversations, you will never get past it. It's going to end out into a war. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times when people start to show their true colors, it's because of controversial moments, and you get to really realize that this is not who that person said it was the whole time. So I feel like it's needed to be had, but at the same time, we can also find truth in different ways in people without having to be ugly, disputes and stuff like that, you know?
Try to understand why a person thinks that way. Don't just hold on to what your parents told you. These people are. Look into history as it happened and not one-sided, one perspectives of history. Even when we go into how they teach about the inception of the United States, look at the viewpoint of who's teaching it. It wasn't until last year that I had to check my thinking on the history of the United States.
Your heart was open to it too.
My heart was open to it because I knew that there was another side.
Yeah.
I've never been told the history of Pocahontas. Wait, what's Pocahontas' real name?
Makawa. Some around that ballpark. We know ballpark.
We know the ballpark. We never thought to look at it through her point of view.
Yeah. And before we dive into it, I just want to say this, man. Anytime you are dealing with a wall or a mental block of trying to receive the fullness of a conversation, that's why anger comes up. That's why some people bust out in tears. Their heart isn't allowing them to feel it.
Right, and that's
and
crazy.
it hurts them, and they get angry and they get upset because as much as they hear what you're saying, their physical is not letting it come in.
They're not being open-minded to a new way of thinking.
That's a word for you.
Able to decide for myself whether something is good or bad, and not have it be linked to whether my tribe approves of it.
Right.
And I think it's getting worse and worse. And so, which is the reason why I'm increasingly bored with political discourse in this country, because I can see someone on TV or read a piece in a newspaper and I kind of know what their position is on anything. And often it's very tribally correct, which may not necessarily be intellectually correct. Right. So that bewilders me. But this is also a country, America is my second home. And there's a kind of, in the way that you worry when you see something you care about starting to crumble. That's the feeling I have about the US. Young people, and not just young people, really, everyone, people who are on social media, there's an expectation that you will not get compassion. And so, you tweet something and then people are coming at you, even your friends who know that that idea that whatever you say has the most uncharitable, that people will read it in the most uncharitable way. I think it makes people hold back. And then, of course, the moral courage part of it is that there are people who could speak up and they don't. I think what's happening now in the sort of, the books that are not being published, you open the newspapers and often there's someone who's been dropped from something. It's often not because those in positions of authority really believe that what has been said was bad. It's because they're afraid. They're afraid of themselves being attacked. And that's what I mean by moral courage, that mix of compassion and moral courage. And what it does...
Moral courage.
Yeah,
wow.
Moral courage. Okay, so when it comes to that, I understand what she's saying, and I agree to it agree with it to an extent. What's going on now, the horrible thing that's going on now. Because... And I'm saying it from the viewpoint of us being on social media ourselves and having a platform. We sign contracts on these platforms on what we can say and what we can't say. And it's contracts that goes a little bit more further in detail than the average social media user. So there's some things that will be censored. One of the things that's horrible things that's going on now in the world, and you all know what I'm talking about without even saying it. For us, when that came out, we was like, oh my God, this is so horrible.
Yeah.
And us having a reaction channel, we had to check ourselves and be like, yes, we're a reaction channel, but we're not a news channel. And you also have to question whether you're qualified to speak on the topic. We talk about history a lot, but most of the times the things that we're talking about are things that already happened. The thing that's going on in that part of the world that's so horrible, how could we react to it, right? Say our comments when what we're saying isn't going to change what's going on. We're two people, regardless if we speak on it or not.
Now that's a mouthful.
And not even in that part of the world. There's some parts of Africa where a horrible thing is going on too. And we dwell in African content a lot because for us it's ancestral work. Understanding our people there. Right? So it's like yes, just being on having a platform, a big platform, what people deem a big platform. Yes, you can speak on it, but what good would it do? What will it change?
I mean, you got it. Yeah. You got a mouthful.
Will
right
it make an impact that will change?
I mean, eyes on us about a topic that's happening now ain't gonna change nothing. I mean, awareness, but more awareness is just creating awareness.
What is it gonna do?
You know what I'm saying? It's not like we have the impact that will be necessarily needed for it to stop when we know where that's gonna truly come from.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, that's a mouthful.
Right. Now, if we had the connections, like,
yeah, if I knew A, B, C, and D, and the landline of here and there, yeah, those conversations could be had behind the scene without even being a viewable thing for people to know about. You know what I'm saying? Because it's, of course, you know, so you could get views and people see it, you're impacted by views, but when you can have that real relationship with a person and have that conversation and continue it, then it can create it can ease the blow. You know what I'm saying? Where people can start mind shifting and making better thought ideas and.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that we don't have impact, because, baby, we got impact. Huh?
No, facts.
And we have bridged gaps and we have mended things, right, on our platform. But for certain topics, you just got to ask yourself, what good would it do?
We don't even know how long it's going to go on.
We wanted it to stop when it happened. But what good would it do?
For people who are creative, is it makes you turn inwards.
Yeah.
You know, you're no longer willing to. I think creativity also requires a kind of risk taking. You know, you have to be able to go outside of what is comfortable for you. I think that's where great art comes from. Right. Even in the small space of a walk.
She got gems. I like her gems.
I love her. Us, we're very raw, real, honest. Have no reason to lie about nothing.
Right.
No reason to fear nobody. We don't feel so. But we have came on this platform and then videos and we like, oh, y'all, this don't make us feel good.
Nah,
this is uncomfortable. We let y'all know, like, this is uncomfortable, because sometimes it be some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's
I understand
true.
what she's saying right there.
Art comes from. Right. Even in the small space of a workshop, I constantly have to say to people, it's okay. Right? You can actually write that, you know, it's okay. Because you can see that they're already worried about what the people in the workshop are going to think. You know, I remember this young man who wrote a story about a man who who sees a young woman and he just completely objectifies her. So he writes the story and he reads a bit of it, and then the other people in the workshop just come for him. They're like, oh my God, you're sexist, you're misogynist. And then this poor guy says, no, I don't agree with the character. I don't agree with the character. And, you know, it just made me think we can't even read anymore. I mean, this idea that immediately the assumption is somehow that he is condoning what the character does, you know, it's a problem, right? So in terms of tribes, I am on the left. You know, I think that the political left makes more sense and is more humane in general. But I also think that there's so many problems now with the left. So we can talk about the right and the kind of crazy book banning, the book banning.
Well, I was going to ask you, because your own book was
apparently
banned.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I mean, I thought, such a ghost company, though. I mean, look at all the wonderful books that have been banned. but that's just really bad, because you're depriving children of knowledge and of pleasure. Yeah. Books bring pleasure. And, you know, on the right as well, all of this talk about, which I find just personally abhorrent, this decision to hide the truth of history. And so in the name of stupid ideas like CRT, they're not allowing children know the history of America. You know, I think that African American history is essential. It is American history. And the truth has to be told. And somehow this idea that you want to protect children from not feeling bad about the truth is absurd, you know?
No, that deserves a clap. Yeah.
I was also thinking about, you know, often on the right you hear when they want to make fun of people on the left, they say, well, facts don't care about your feelings. Yeah. Actually, we should be saying that to people on the right who want to hide the truth of African American history. You know? And I came obviously from Nigeria to go to college, and I didn't really know very much about African American history. And I because I was curious and I wanted to understand, started reading African American history. I feel that I'm a bit of an expert now, self-styled. But for me, really, it was a story of such wonderful grace and grit, not just about, you know, the horrors. People. And I think young Americans should know that. You know, they should know that. They deserve to. But on the left, it bothers me that my own tribe, you know, it's easy for us to criticize people who are banning books. But what are we saying to ourselves about the self-censorship that we are promoting? Right. And about the way that we attack our own so viciously? Right? There's a sense in which on the left, it's so easy to fall short of expectations. It's so easy. There's a kind of, what I said about out-angeling one another, we're now supposed to be perfect. There's that kind of puritanism. You're not even supposed to, you're supposed to know everything, right? You're supposed to know the right language to use. You're supposed to know, and you're not expected to ask questions. And if you do ask, I'll tell you this about when I was in
she cooking.
I was speaking to some students
before she move forward. She cooking, man. It's crazy how they don't want to normalize the idea of knowing your history, and people who are feeling targeted because of the results of what it created. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you had any history with the doing of something onto a body of people, that is the reality of it, right? Why is it important to know? Because you will never want that to happen again.
Exactly.
You will never want people to feel like this can still be a troublesome reality for them in any time of history. You know what I'm saying? And just realizing how all of that had aged with the laws change and everything of how people wasn't allowed to do certain things until how we are today. That just gives a person a little more hope to know that they can be great because of the impact that the people who was in a terrible situation still came out on top, you know?
Right. Each time I read something that happened in history, I'm even more empowered to be the proud black woman that I am.
Change that walk up, huh?
For real. It empowers me. And I remember as a little kid, I vividly remember my dad had a wood painting on the wall, and it was passed down from his mom, and it had boats on it. And I was like, Dad, why do you keep this one painting, this one picture? And he said, because that symbolizes where we come from.
Come on, man.
And because it was taught to us in the way it was taught to us, the first time we hear about black people in African American history in the United States, we're taught that we were slaves. The problem that they're having now is that they don't want the other side to feel bad or any type of way. Well, I was one of those kids who, when we were learning that's one of the first things we learned about Martin Luther King and all that. When I was learning that, they would bully us about, oh, y'all was slaves and
and no one said, they ain't saying anything about that. So we're talking about emotional feelings feelings getting hurt compared to people who was physically being hurt and beaten upon for years,
centuries.
We're looking at those type of polls here, right? And which one will always outweigh the other one? The ones of history, how people was being treated then. And I want to talk about symbolism. Like, what if a child wants to look back in history, or what if a child have a feeling to want to be a great speaker, right? But they don't have the necessary tools, or they have the people around them to encourage them. They have to go back into history. They got to open the vault and see who was the representation at a certain time in life, and if books are being taken off the shelves, then who are these children going to become? You know what I'm saying?
And then look, they're rewriting textbooks and all this from a perspective. No, stop calling them conquerors. Call them what they was. The human traffickers. Call them that, please. Tell it how it happened. Don't try to glorify, oh, they was the great this. No, tell it what it was. They sailed the
seas and it wasn't.
They discovered it. How you discovered a place where people already was?
Living, eating, farming, doing everything that most people around the world couldn't do. At a certain time. Wasn't knowledgeable of. I'm just saying.
Tell you where. But we're talking about things and suddenly I stop and I ask them, what does that mean? There's this ascendancy of buzzwords. We throw things around. And so I said to them, explain it to me as if I were in kindergarten. And they couldn't. There's a kind of, so we throw these things out and we expect everyone to know them. But, I think on the left, and again...
I like that. I like that. Being able to express it in a way where kids can understand some of the most biggest, broadest conversations that we're having today. Because it's good because now you're able to speak to them on a 1+1 level, but still get them to receive the information at like a 4.0 level.
Yeah,
that's big.
Yeah. And as American people, right? We all think that people are gonna understand what we're saying, but in the audience, because America is so diverse, you never know who's in that audience, right?
Right.
So us being on this platform, knowing that we have an international community now, we know to speak at a level of the simplest terms possible, because we know that not only do we have people tuning in from all over the world, but we have people who are teenagers tuning in, surprisingly, and people who are over the age of 65. We know that. And then we also know that there's language barriers, there's tone barriers. There's sometimes we will be joking about something and people will take the joke, not know how to take the joke, or not even knowing that we're joking. Just like on the last video we did about the KKK, the Philippines KKK, and we was like, y'all could have named it AAA, BBB. We were laughing about it. We were lightening the load, but they were, you know, some people were taking it as we were trying to rewrite their history. No, we was just lightening the load.
I mean, that's why you got to understand people's history. Because if you can understand people's history and their culture, you'll be able to understand why they say certain things, and you won't be blindsided to the wordplay that they're using, which could be offensive in your neck of the woods.
Yep.
Of course, I care more about the left because it's, you know, it's kind of where I feel more comfortable. And it's not that I'm being a scold. I'm hoping that what I'm doing is saying what a lot of people on the left are thinking.
I see.
Yeah? Just give people a bit more room.
Right.
Maybe be more charitable. When somebody says something, don't immediately interpret it to mean the worst possible thing. If more of us did that, maybe the tone on social media would change a bit. Maybe the literature we produce would be a bit more, would be a bit less narrow. You know, I don't really find contemporary fiction very interesting anymore.
Right.
And I read this book and everyone was good and everyone was ideologically correct. Everyone had all the right opinions.
Right.
And I thought,
I think we call that propaganda, no?
Yeah, exactly. It's not literature. You know, it's and you can see that the people are not real people. I mean, I love this expression, H.G. Wells, that literature should be about the jolly coarseness of life. And to that, I like to say it doesn't have to be jolly. I mean, we live in a world now where people talk about sensitivity readers. So imagine if you were a writer, you don't want your publisher to have to get a sensitivity reader for your book. So you're going to do the sensitivity writing yourself.
Yeah.
But also, I think that humor as a device in storytelling is so important because we can use humor to talk about things that really matter. And humor is universal. And so when people are laughing, but they're also sort of taking something in. And here's the other thing about the progressive left, my tribe. We've lost the ability to laugh. And I think storytellers are essential for every society. If we don't have our storytellers feeling free enough to tell our stories, we're losing something. And then the generations who will come after us, I think they're going to just be startled. You know, we look back and we read Dickens and I read Balzac and I get a sense of what life was like then. I wonder if people reading contemporary writing today will get a true sense of what our lives are like. And so I'm going to, and I'll tell you this without naming names, but I had been asked to do an interview, the very respected media outfit in America. And a few days before the interview, my publisher tells me, oh, I'm so sorry, they just said they cannot go forward with the interview. And I said, oh, why? And they said, well, because they think that they cannot interview you if you're not willing to address the comments you made in 2017 about trans women. And I was so stunned by that. I thought, well, I wrote a children's book. And I think what stunned me even more was the willingness of this media organization to be open about the reason that they were canceling the interview. I mean, usually if people felt that there was something maybe not so admirable about their reasons, they would kind of hide them, right? They might say...
Open about canceling her, but they didn't want her to talk about it openly.
Right. You know what?
That's
I
crazy.
have a personal story of that, but before I go into that, I want to say, baby, you have helped me, stop being so caring. Okay. Because I find myself saying, y'all know I don't mean it like that, and, saying certain things to try to make sure people know that I'm coming from a positive place, an authentic place. Yeah. Because I'm passionate.
Yeah, I feel you.
About things. People take me wrong sometimes,
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's just about you being able to deliver something, but not let it be as, as a stinger to the listener, because oftentimes, people want to apologize for what they just said. Or they want people to understand I didn't mean it like that. In reality, you don't have to ever apologize for none of these things, because you just got to take your wordplay and have it more of a core and then deliver it like that. You just have to take it how they take it.
I know, and that's what you be saying. And I'd be like, okay, well, because I know I can be harsh with some of the things I say.
Now, what I do believe is if the package is wrapped around with a lot of aggression, then it can always be taken as aggression.
Okay, yeah, because I be having those moments too. But anyway, I never want someone to think that I'm trying to be anything that I'm not. Like, I am a peacemaker, but I'm also a person who's going to stand up for what's right.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so my husband be helping me.
Oh, yeah, got you.
Or the producer isn't well. But they said that.
Oh, wait.
It made me think.
Okay, so the other part of the story, I forgot about the other part of the story. All right, so I am an author. I have books. I write books. That's what I do for a living. That's a part of what I do for a living. There was the biggest order that I've ever received for my career.
Yeah, I remember that.
An organization had ordered my book for their book club, book of the month, and my book led to one of the organizer actually leaving the church, because once they got delivered, the pastor read the book, and the pastor was like, I don't want my church members to read this book. My book is Christian fiction, but I'm real and raw with my Christian fiction.
I gotta mention, when she did receive the book, if I'm not mistaken, she skimmed it. She did read it because she had to approve all of this.
She read it on her own.
You know, she was ahead of it. She had to approve all of this, and then she sent it to the pastor, and the pastor denied it.
Yeah. It should have been done beforehand, but oh well. Yeah, so I'm real and raw with my books, right? Everybody in the church isn't saved and sanctified. Everybody don't have no, you know, cookie cutter Christian life. I went to the real and the raw and the gutter. You know, there's some drug addicts in the families. There's some fornications going on. There's people fighting over different things going on. And that is what's in my books. My books are real life.
Everybody falls short.
Everybody falls short. So that made me question how society is just so sensitive about real life. What are we hiding about life? This is stuff that really goes on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Nah, you got a point. 100%.
That's my personal story with that.
I mean, you know, I was stunned, and I have to say I was kind of hurt. But also it made me start to understand how certain people can choose not to speak out. And by this, I mean, in the past, I would sometimes say, look, you know, there's some people who are so successful. You know, can you just say these things publicly? There are people who would write to me and say, you know, I really agree, there's so much censorship, but they will not say it publicly. And sometimes I would think a little bit judgmental. I'd be like, well, you're very successful. Why don't you say it publicly? But when this happened, my first thought was, oh, this book that I love will not get to find readers. And so it made me start to understand that human impulse, it's not even about wanting money, or it's that you've created something that you really want the world to see. And the possibility that you might be denied that makes you hold back. I grew up in a culture in which, because I'm a woman, I cannot inherit property, all of those things. So it's shaped so much of my life. And I said that not at all thinking that I was causing offense, at all. Not intending to cause offense. But I also understand that it's possible to cause offense without meaning to, right? It is.
Yeah, true.
But you know, I didn't, and so afterwards I was so taken aback by, you know, there were, you know, people wrote to people. I mean, it was just really horrible. I took to my bed for 2 weeks. But and I don't like to talk about it because I don't like to cast myself as a victim. There's a kind of, it's almost impossible to talk about this with nuance without being accused either, oh, you're making yourself the victim, or, oh, you're so insensitive, kind of. I remember thinking, well, why would anybody think that I meant harm? Because people said, well, you're creating a hierarchy. People said you're a murderer. And I thought, you know, my whole life has been about the celebration and the embrace of diversity, and sort of, you know, I love the idea that we are different in the world. And I think my walk speaks for myself, you know, for itself, and the positions I've taken. And so it made me start to realize how, again, that idea of compassion, that idea of a kind of narrowing, a very, very vicious narrowing of just how one is supposed to be, right? And I also, you know, I got a lot of flowers from people during that period. It was almost as though somebody had died. No, seriously.
Bro, when people want you to lose, bro, they're going to stop. They're going to do everything they possibly can for you not to win. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, her stories and everything that she was mentioning about it, she dropped gems, but a lot of this stuff was just like, she had to go on an interview and only talk about certain things that was controversial to the listeners of that platform. You know what I'm saying? Her book being boycotted, not being able to release her book.
Not boycotted. It wasn't boycotted.
Not boycotted.
The interview. They didn't want to do the interview.
Yeah, so that's crazy.
Yeah. I love her. She is a great writer. I love her conversations. It always gets you to think differently. Yeah, especially because she is both Nigerian and American. You know, so she has a different perspective than, you know, the average American.
Yeah,
you know?
That is true. Yeah.
And that is why I do love the diversity that our country has. Because people come from all walks of life and they can add to this salad bowl that we have. Right? I love that. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.